This is your weekly real estate update for the Greater Portland Maine area. These are closed sales median numbers in the last 7 days. So days on market came down a little bit from 12 to 9 days on market, just over a week. The list to sale ratio still at 100%. The median sold price went up a little bit to $535,000, and the average 30-year fixed interest rate came down quite a bit this week to 6.63%. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Of course, your US inflation still at 2.7% inflation year over year. Not a ton of new data this past week, but I do want to talk about three things. The first is that Trump had all these deadlines in place, and some of them hit this past Thursday. So he officially launched some tariffs, locked in some tariffs. Overall, the market sort of had mixed reactions. The Dow Jones and the S&P 500 did a little drop, but NASDAQ ticked up a little bit, surprisingly, because Trump also made some threats about having massive tariffs on semiconductors. But NASDAQ reacted well to the news on Thursday. The real question here is how is this going to affect the US consumers? So it would seem that mostly we have locked in the tariffs for the time being, and we really have yet to see how that is going to affect the consumer. So effectively, a tariff is a tax on imports, right? And that tariff, that cost can either be taken on by the person importing that good, or they can just go ahead and pass it on to the consumer in the price. Right now, it's looking like 18.6% across the board, if you average it out, that the import tax is, right? So we're basically saying anything that you import from overseas and use as a US consumer could go up almost 19%, the cost to you. But we don't know if that's actually how those manufacturers or those producers are going to treat it. Are they going to take that on in their profit law, like their profits, or are they going to pass that on to the consumer? It might be a little bit of both. In addition, a big question is, so the Commerce Secretary said this is basically going to be $50 billion in revenue monthly to the United States. What is going to happen with that? Are U.S. citizens going to see any of that? Is that going to directly impact citizens, right? Other than the stock market, another thing that happened this past week, you might remember we had employment numbers come in really soft the week before. We had the tariff stuff happen. And so the experts previously had predicted that there would be no rate cuts in July, right? And then no rate cuts happened. And they had, over the last couple of months, pretty low expectations for rate cuts in September. However, this past week, the prediction of rate cuts coming in September has gone all the way up to 93%. So very confident that rate cuts will be coming in September. And mortgage lenders are so confident that they basically started pricing in those rate cuts already, which is why we saw the mortgage rates come down a little bit this week, because they're already trying to say, well, we might get a little bit of ahead of it, get some new loans in there, get some refis in there, and when they drop, we'll have already captured that business, right? Overall, I would say that it will be interesting to see if we see rate cuts in September and how the tariffs impact the U.S. consumer. What is that going to do for the American and their ability to buy housing? Is their purchasing power going to go up? Are they going to have a little bit more money in their pocket? Or is their purchasing power maybe to go up slightly because of rates, but then down because they have less money in their pocket? Overall, will we see going into winter more buyers in the market, more purchasing power or not? I guess we'll have to wait and see. If you have questions about this stuff, please reach out anytime.